Welcome to the 11th invited talk, in fact 12th session, but 11th invited talk of RDGG 2021. May I request Professor Ambad Vijaykumar to introduce the speaker.
I'm extremely happy to introduce my good friend Arvind, who is currently a professor in Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Chennai. He had his master's from Delhi University and PhD from IIT Delhi.
IIT Kanpur.
IIT Kanpur, and served in IIT Madras and IIT Delhi before joining IMSC in 1993. Basically, his research interest is computational complexity, also algorithmic questions with algebraic flavor. So he is giving a talk on random sampling from finite groups via graph expanders. Arvind, please.
Thank you, Vijay. First of all, I should thank the organizers, Vijay and Aparna, for organizing such a wonderful research seminar and also giving me an opportunity to give a talk here. So the topic of my talk is random sampling from a finite group given by generating set. So it's certainly a group theoretic talk, and it's also going to be having to do with graphs because it's going to be on the Cayley graph, on a Cayley graph of the finite group. So it is a graphs and groups topic, but a bit different from the current theme of the seminar so far. Okay. It's also an algorithmic talk, basically. So it's a math and computer science mix. So when I proposed this title to Vijay first, he warned me that many people in the audience would be predominantly mathematics background. So I have tried to make my talk a fairly broad level kind of talk. Right towards the end, I'll mention a couple of research problems. So pardon me if it's more of a tutorial or introductory flavor talk, but I hope you will enjoy the connections between the different ideas and very nice bunch of results that I'll show you and concepts. So here is the plan of the talk. So straight away, the problem that we are interested in is G is a finite group, but it's given by a generating set. So it's compactly represented by a small generating set. So think of G as a group with something like 2 power m many elements, and or something exponential in the size of the generating set. So, but what is given to us is the size of the generating set, a small representation of the group. You know the group operation, so you can produce all the other elements of the group by multiplying the generators. And the problem that we want to address, to solve, is to sample from the group G nearly uniformly at random. I'll define what that means very soon. And we also want to do it efficiently, in the sense that the time that we want to take to produce a sample from the group should be polynomial in the size of the input. And here the input is the generating set S. And so, but the group itself could be exponential in the size of the generating set. So what we cannot do is to list out the group elements completely and then pick one element of the group at random. That is not something that we can do. We don't have that much time. That would be too slow. Okay, here is an example. It's not really a running example. I won't come back to it. But it's an example that you can keep in mind when you think of this more abstractly stated problem. You can take G to be a subgroup of n by n invertible matrices over a finite field FQ. And G is given by a collection of invertible n by n matrices. So what is given as input is a collection of n by n invertible matrices over the finite field FQ. And the group from which we want to sample is the group that is generated by this collection of invertible matrices. And notice that each matrix here has entries from the field FQ. So each entry can be represented in binary in log q to the base 2 bits, and there are n square entries. So you can say that each matrix in the generating set is of size roughly n square into log q. Okay, and there are s many of them. And what we want to see in time that is polynomial in n and log q, and also the size of s. I missed that out here. And we want to obtain a nearly uniformly distributed element of G. Okay. Actually, for the solution that this is basically Babai's algorithm that I'm going to present. I should say that right up front. My own work I'll mention only briefly in the last slide because I mean that's like even more. That is probably too algorithmic to present in this forum. So the exact group operation is not important. So you can think of the group operation as inside a black box. Basically, to say that I don't really care what the group operation is. We can assume that the elements of the group G are encoded as strings of length m, say binary strings of length m. So you know that the size of G is at most 2 power m, because there are at most 2 power m encodings in zeros and ones of length m. And the group operation is given by a black box, which means that all I care about is that if I give the black box strings x and y which encode group elements as input, it will give me as output, the function will give me as output the product x and y. I don't really need to know what the group operation is for this algorithm, except that it takes 1 unit of time to multiply 2 group elements. Okay. Please feel free to interrupt me at any point of time to ask a question. It's going to be an easy-paced talk. There are two nice solutions to this problem. The one that I'll be talking about is Babai's algorithm from the early 1900s. And the second one is a relatively more recent one. It was something that was proposed by Gene Cooperman, which had a bug in it, and then John Dickson fixed that bug. And so you can call it the Dickson-Cooperman sampling algorithm. It's a much shorter algorithm and a faster algorithm than Babai's. But on the other hand, Babai's algorithm, there is a nice story behind it, the connection with expanded graphs and things. So I'm going to present that. So the plan of the talk is to start with the idea of expanded graphs. What are random walks on expanded graphs? What is the significance of random walks on expanded graphs? And then I'll touch upon an important notion from an old paper of Erdős and Renyi called Probabilistic Methods in Group Theory, which was probably the first paper that brought in the probabilistic method into group theory. And Dickson, for example, is one of the leaders in this area of probabilistic group theory. It's quite a flourishing area of research. Then I'll tell you, explain to you a very cute little lemma called the Babai-Zemuredi reachability lemma. And finally, an overview of Babai's algorithm. So you can see that this problem and this field has very decent connections. There are lots of big names involved here. So important contributions. People have been interested in such questions for a long time. Okay, so let's start with the notion of expanded graphs. Expanded graphs are basically, the idea is we want to bring together two conflicting notions. I want to build a graph which is a sparse graph. That means it has few edges. In fact, I would like it to be a regular sparse graph. That means the degree of every vertex, I would like it to be a constant degree graph. And but on the other hand, I want it to be extremely well connected. And that is the notion that we want to make precise. But keep in mind that there are these two conflicting requirements. If I want an extremely well-connected graph, I could simply take the complete graph. But that's not very interesting, and I'll tell you why, for any application purposes. On the other hand, even mathematically, it's challenging to ask, can I build a really well-connected graph which is very sparse? Okay, so let's start with the notion of edge expanders, which is the most intuitive notion of expanders. So what we want, what we demand is for a deregular graph to be a good expander graph is that for any subset of vertices which is of size at most n by 2, n is the total number of vertices, the number of edges that is going across the cut S comma S bar, so edges that are going from inside S to outside, is a good fraction of the edges. So the number of edges going from S to S bar is at least C times cardinality S. So think of C as a constant fraction of D. Maybe a small constant fraction of D, but a constant fraction of D. So then you would call it a C edge expander. And you want this to happen for every subset of vertices of size at most n by 2. Okay. So in some sense, basically it's saying that the average degree of the nodes of S going out of S is at least C. That's why dividing by S means that. It's like an averaging that you're doing across S. On the average, C edges are going from every vertex from inside S to outside S. This is a property that is difficult to check. So if I give you a graph and ask you to find what is the precise edge expansion of that graph, it is a computationally hard problem to compute. So it's not something that you can, so it's not practically very useful because you can never really find out what is the edge expansion of a graph. It will take exponential time to find that out. So luckily, there is a notion of spectral expansion, which is an algebraic notion, which is closely tied to edge expansion. And in many ways, this is also an equally intuitive definition of expansion. So what is the definition? So you take the adjacency matrix, think of the graph as a deregular graph. So take its adjacency matrix, normalize it, which means divide every entry by D. And the largest eigenvalue of the normalized adjacency matrix is 1. In fact, all its eigenvalues lie between 1 and -1. It's a symmetric graph, so it has only real eigenvalues. Symmetric matrix, sorry. So it has only real eigenvalues. And eigenvalues all lie between 1 and -1. If you hadn't normalized it, it would be all lying between D and -D. What is important for us, what makes this deregular graph a good spectral expander is if the second largest eigenvalue in absolute value is bounded away from 1. So I'll call X a mu spectral expander. If lambda of X, which is the maximum of the absolute values of all the other eigenvalues except 1, which is the largest one, is at most mu. So lambda of X is the absolute value of all the. For example, if the graph is it's a deregular bipartite graph, then -1 will also be an eigenvalue. I don't want that because for certain reasons of random walks and mixing on an expander graph, I don't want a bipartite graph to be part of an expander. Okay, so it turns out that good spectral expanders are good edge expanders and vice versa. There is a slack in the parameters. Each one approximates the other fairly well. And these inequalities are all known, which we won't talk about.
Excuse me, so Peter's graph will be an expander, isn't it?
Peterson graph.
Yeah.
Peterson graph is a 3-regular graph, right?
Yeah.
What is its second law? It's a strongly regular graph.
Strongly regular.
Yes, I think it definitely it will be an expander. But
I think so.
It has only 3 distinct eigenvalues. Yeah,
yes,
strongly, yes. It will be a good expander. Yes. But the thing is that we are really interested in a family of expander graphs.
Yes.
We want expander graphs for
Every n.
infinite, if not for every n, for infinitely many values of n.
Yes.
And we also want the n's not to be too far spaced apart, because it should be an n that is within reach. So what we want is an infinite family of graphs, x1, x2, and so on. Each xi will be d-regular for some small d, and say xi has ni vertices. We want the ni's to be not spaced apart too much, and we want them all to have the second largest eigenvalue in absolute value bounded by mu. And mu we want to make as small as possible. For example, the complete graph has only 2 eigenvalues. The largest is 1 because it's a regular graph, and all the other eigenvalues are 0. So the spectral gap is the maximum possible. But you compromise there because the degree became too large. So there is a trade-off between the degree and the spectral gap that you can achieve. I'll come to that. So we also want, when we have a family of expander graphs, given an input I, we want the graph xi to be efficiently computable. So here is an, so I'm jumping to Cayley graphs. So what is a Cayley graph? So let's take this simple example. You have the group Z mod 6, additive group modulo 6. So the graph has 6 vertices labeled by the elements of the group. And if I take S to be just the element 2, then the Cayley graph that I get CA by K of G comma S is precisely this directed graph. Why? Because from 0 by adding 2, I can get to the vertex 2. The out degree of every vertex is exactly 1 because there's only one generated element. I can go from 0 by adding an element of the generating set of the set S to the vertex that I'm at. So from 0 I can go to 2, from 2 to 4, from 4 back to 0. And so that's one 3 cycle. Another directed 3 cycle is 1 to 3, 3 to 5, and back to 1. So this is, because S is not a generating set, this is not even a connected graph yet. If we make S to be a generating set, we get the Cayley graph, which looks like the following. From 0, I can go to 2, again, because I can add 2 to 0 and get 2. From 0, I can go to 3 by adding 3. From 3 by adding 3, I can go back to 0. So this I make an undirected edge, because 3 and minus 3 are the same. 3 and the inverse of 3 are the same in G, sorry. And you can see that similarly, the edge between 1 and 4 is undirected, because I can go from 1 to 4 as well as from 4 to 1 using the generators of S. From 4, I can go to 0, 1, and so on. So these are the edges. Some are directed, some are not directed. If I make S a symmetric set by putting in -2 as well, so this is a symmetric generating set for S, then I get the undirected Cayley graph, which with a generating set S, where I don't need to put directions for edges, because for every element in the generating set, I also have its inverse. S is symmetric. So this is the kind of Cayley graph that we'll be interested in. So what we should picture is a large group with a small generating set, and we are interested in the undirected Cayley graph. And what we want is that that Cayley graph should be an expander graph. Okay. So what are generating sets of groups? Let's quickly recall that. So subset S of G is a generating set if every element of G can be written as a product of the generators. And this is something very easy to see, that every group has a generating set of size at most log to the base 2 size of G. This is simply Lagrange's theorem, because what we'll do is we'll pick some non-trivial element, take the group generated by it. If it's not the whole of G, take some missing element and include it in the generating set. The group will increase in size, so that means it will at least double in size. So every time you include a new generator, you double the group. So by the time you include log G many generators, you will get the whole. So every group has a generating set of size, at most size of log G. And what is an expanding generating set? A generating set is an lambda expanding generating set. If the Cayley graph G comma S, where S is a symmetric generating set, you include the inverses as well. If that graph is a lambda spectral expander, then you say that it's a lambda expanding generating set. Okay. So these were two more definitions. And now, here are some very well-known Cayley expanders. The construction of expander graphs, most of the well-known expander graph constructions have been basically Cayley graph constructions. So here is one due to Lubotsky. This is the special linear group over a finite field FP. Basically 2 by 2 matrices of determinant 1. So these 4 elements give you a good expander Cayley graph for the group G. So at this point, maybe I should just mention that, remember I said that if the degree is the maximum possible, the spectral gap is the maximum possible because second largest eigenvalue is 0. 1 is the only non-zero eigenvalue. On the other hand, if I fix the degree to be D, what is the best spectral expansion I can get? So here, this is not the normalized lambda G. So if the largest eigenvalue is D, the second largest eigenvalue looks like square root of 2 times square root of D. Or if you take the normalized adjacency matrix, it's roughly something like 2 by square root of D. That means because after you normalize, divide by the degree. So the spectral gap that you can achieve, the best possible spectral gap that you can achieve for degree D graphs is 1 minus 2 by square root, 1 minus order 1 by square root D, omega 1 by square root D. That is the best possible spectral gap you can achieve. Okay. So these are the expander graphs with the best possible. Such graph families are also called Ramanujan graphs. Okay. So probably the term was coined by in the Lubotsky-Phillips-Sarnak paper. Okay. So let me tell you something which is more computer sciencey. So what is the connection between expander graphs and random sampling? So take the Cayley graph, the undirected Cayley graph on the group G with generating set S. So the vertex set is G and edges are as we defined it. And it's a connected graph because S is a generating set. A natural idea to sample from G is to do a random walk on the undirected graph G. You start at a vertex and you do a random walk on it. What does it mean to do a random walk? So I start at, let's say, the identity element. It has got cardinality S many neighbors. I choose any one of the neighbors with uniform probability. So with probability 1 by cardinality S, I go to the ith neighbor. If there are the I neighbors are 1 to cardinality S. And I continue. So for every neighbor, I step to that neighbor with probability 1 by the degree of that vertex. Here it's a regular graph. So with probability 1 by D, I step to a neighbor. And I do a random walk for some number of steps. And I can ask what will be the distribution that I get if I do a random walk for, say, T steps. How well does the random walk mix? Means how close do I get to the uniform distribution if I walk for T steps. Unfortunately, if the diameter of the Cayley graph for an arbitrary generating set S, if it is large, for example, if G is the cyclic group generated by a single element G, and let's say G, small g is the group is of order T, then for the undirected graph, the diameter is going to be T by 2. So I need to take at least T steps even to visit all the elements of the group, let alone be uniformly distributed over all the elements of the group. So one important barrier for us is that the Cayley graph could have huge diameter. Of course, in the case of the cyclic group, we can easily fix it by including the generators, augmenting the generating set by including g square, g to the 4, etc. All the powers of all g to the 2 to the I, where I is at most log of t. If you do that, then you shrink the diameter. So you will get a Cayley graph. Then that generating set, the Cayley graph will have small diameter. Okay. Whether that is a good expander is a different question. But the first hurdle is that even the diameter could be very large. So sorry.
Are we going that t by 2 because of the definition of the expander? Mod is less than or equal to n by 2?
T by 2 I said because it's I'll include G and G inverse both. So the farthest point will be, I suppose, G to the power T by 2, floor or seal of T by 2.
Yeah, and for the expander, we need mod is less than or equal to n by 2. Is it that's why? Definition?
No, right now, yeah, okay. Right now, I've not got to the expander. So what I'm asking, I'm just in the slide, I'm only asking if I have a undirected Cayley graph, so with a generating set S, and if I do a random walk on that graph, how well will that random walk mix? Because I'm thinking of random sampling from G by doing a random walk on the Cayley graph. Okay. So I have not yet come to the point about what happens when the Cayley graph is a good expander graph.
No, I thought for the construction of the expander, we'll have to go up to n by 2. The sequence.
What will have to go up to n by 2?
Mod is the definition you said is should be less than or equal to n upon 2. Na?
No. That is that is when I defined edge expansion or no. So when I defined edge, that S is different from this S. This S is the generating set for the group G. Okay. So when I defined edge expansion, so I defined a notion of edge expansion first because that is an intuitive notion of how well connected the graph is. Any subset of at most n by 2 vertices has at least C times that subset size many edges going out of this. So that is a good edge. That is a C edge expander. Okay.
Okay.
But so that was just to motivate what expansion meant. Here S is a generating set for the group G, and I'm looking at the Cayley graph of G comma S. Okay, and I'm only focusing on spectral expansion because edge expansion and spectral expansion are really equivalent. Fine.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Thanks.
Excuse me. So you mean you want a graph for sorry? You want the Cayley graph to have a small diameter, is it?
Definitely. So if
Yes.
you have an expander graph, it is going to have small diameter. Yes. Its diameter will be logarithmic in the size of the group. But I want much more. I want that I want a walk on that graph to get to close to uniform distribution very fast. That is not necessarily guaranteed if the diameter is small.
Okay. Because in the construction of these large-scale interconnection networks, this Cayley graphs comes into role.
Yes.
So could that reason be that it is we are interested only in Cayley graphs of a small diameter? Could be.
Yeah, that is that. I mean, definitely, small diameter graphs have many other applications. You're right. Definitely.
Okay.
Fine. So moving on, let me try and what I want to explain to you is the connection between expander graphs and random sampling. Suppose the Cayley graph is a lambda spectral expander graph. And let's say D is the size of my generating set S. So let's say A is the normalized adjacency matrix of the Cayley graph. So it's an undirected graph. I can take its adjacency matrix, it will be a symmetric matrix. I can normalize it by dividing all the entries by the uniform degree. The degree of every node is D. So that is the normalized adjacency matrix. So now let's suppose pi is any n-dimensional probability vector. What you can do is you can write pi as so you can easily check this, that if you take the uniform distribution, that means you take the probability vector 1 by cardinality g in all the entries. Take pi minus that will be orthogonal to u. So I can always decompose any probability vector as the uniform distribution plus the orthogonal, plus the component that is orthogonal to u. Okay. So you can always write pi like this. So u perp will be a vector that is orthogonal to u. That means that the dot product will be 0. Now, what will happen if I do an L-step random walk starting at the distribution pi? The distribution that I will go to will be a to the L pi, because every time A itself is like a stochastic matrix. When you normalize the adjacency matrix, it becomes a stochastic matrix. Okay, you can see that in row sums as well as column sums as one. Okay, so it will take a probability vector to another probability vector. So if I apply one step of the walk, I'll get a new distribution which is a pi, which will also be a probability distribution. If I take L steps, I will get a to the L pi. A to the L u is the same as u, because the uniform distribution is a stationary distribution for this random walk. So I'll get u there, and for the rest of it, I'll get a to the L applied to u perpendicular. Now the question is, I want to know how close I am to the uniform distribution. So what I'll do is I'll take a to the L pi minus the uniform distribution and look at its L1 norm. What is that? That's just the L1 norm of a to the L applied to u perpendicular. And because we have taken away the uniform distribution, which is the eigenvector for the eigenvalue 1, the rest of it has eigenvalue bounded by lambda. Okay. What will happen is that when you look at the eigenvalue bounds correctly by applying Cauchy-Schwarz and so on, you will see that this is bounded by lambda by d whole to the power L times the length of u perpendicular. So u perpendicular has some constant length. I mean, some fixed length. It is, whatever be the entries, its entries are all bounded by at most 2, because pi and u's entries are all at most 1 each. So this is something that is some small quantity, but this is something that is exponentially decreasing because lambda is less than 1. So depending on how far lambda is from 1, how much smaller lambda is than 1, this random walk is going to converge to the uniform distribution as rapidly as that. You can see that it's exponentially decreasing for every step of the random walk. So this is the connection between expander graphs and random sampling. If I do an L-step random walk starting at just the identity element of the group G, that is also a probability vector, because it's 1 and 0s everywhere else. That's a probability vector. This inequality would still hold, and I would get very close to uniform distribution depending on the value of L. L doesn't have to be very large, because u perpendicular is something like cardinality of G. So L, something like order of log of cardinality of G will be good enough to make this very small. So if I have an expander graph in order logarithmic in the size of the group, I will get very close to uniform distribution. So I will have a random sampling algorithm very easily once I can get an expanding generating set S for G. Okay, I hope that's clear. So our goal is, you're given a group G by an arbitrary generating set, or this is Babai's algorithm. How do I find an expanding generating set? So here is an interesting theorem about expanding generating sets itself. So suppose G is an arbitrary group. Can we always find an expanding generating set for G? How many are there and what would be its size? There's a theorem of Alon and Reuchmann. It says that if for any finite group G, and you give me any lambda, which is the lambda that you want for your spectral gap, you want a lambda spectral expander, and there is a constant C lambda, says that if you take a random subset of size C lambda into log of size of G and use that as your generating set, then the Cayley graph is going to be a lambda spectral expander with high probability, with constant probability.
Arvind, can you please take your previous slide?
Sure.
And that first condition that you have mentioned,
Yeah.
do we have infinitely many such graphs, family of graphs? Or such graphs are rare?
Which graph?
Cayley graphs, which is a lambda spectral expander also.
Oh, you have infinite families of such graphs. For example, these graphs are have that property. All these constructions have constant spectral gap. They even have, optimal spectral gap, where lambda of G is something like 2 by square root of D.
Oh, they are all Cayley also, isn't it?
They're all Cayley graphs, yes. But they are special Cayley graphs. What we are asking is, if I give you an arbitrary group, and that's what this theorem is talking about, the Alon-Reutemann theorem. If I give you an arbitrary group G, how large a generating set can I find to make it an expander graph? Right. And their answer is, you take a random subset of order log of size of G size, where that constant will depend on how good you want lambda to be. You take a generating set of that size, a random subset, get a Cayley graph out of it. Okay, that will be a lambda spectral expander with constant probability. So it's a probabilistic statement, but you can see that, of course, it's the specialized constructions of the ones that we saw, the Lubotsky and others, where you have constant size expander. They are not constructed by random sampling. They are carefully crafted generating sets. But here you're simply saying that you just dip your hand into the group and draw out logarithmically many elements, you will get a spectral expander with high probability. But the whole problem is that we want to randomly sample from G, so this theorem is not really useful for us. How do we randomly? I want to randomly sample from G. And I told you that if I had a good spectral expanding generating set for G, then by doing a random walk, I can randomly sample from G. How do I get a good spectral expanding set? Alon-Reutemann theorem says randomly sample from G. So it's like a circular thing. I can't really use this, because the problem I want to solve is, how do I break this chicken and egg problem? So there we come to Erdős-Rényi sequences. So suppose G is any finite group, and G1, G2, Gk is a sequence of elements from the group. Then the cube that is generated by the sequence of elements is this product. It's this ordered product. G1 to the E1, G2 to the E2, Gk to the Ek, where the EIs are zeros and ones. So why is it called the cube generated by G1, G2, Gk? Because it's like the Boolean hypercube. E1 is like the x1 axis, where I can choose either 0 or 1. E2 is like the x2 axis, where I can choose 0 or 1. Ek is like the xk axis, where I can choose 0 and 1. So all possible group elements that I can get by multiplying, writing these products, G1 to the E1, G2 to the E2, is the cube that is generated by G1, G2, Gk. This cube is called an Erdős-Rényi sequence if G is, the whole group can be generated as the cube of G1, G2, Gk. Question is, what should be K? What is your guess? How large should be K? By now you should know that I'm thinking only of logarithmic in size of G, so it should be logarithmic in size of G. That is a good guess. Okay. So here is the Erdős-Rényi theorem. Let's just read out the theorem. It's from the first paper on probabilistic methods in group theory. It's a very nice paper, worth reading. So here is what the theorem states. Give me any epsilon and delta, small numbers, and choose the size, the number of elements of your cube generating sequence to be twice log of size of G plus twice log of 1 over epsilon plus log of 1 over delta. And then if I pick randomly these elements G1, G2, Gk from G, then with probability at least 1 minus delta, not only will I generate the whole group, but when I take this E bar, which is the zeros and ones, uniformly at random from 0, 1 to the k, and see what is the probability that G1 to the E1, G2 to the E2, Gk to the Ek equals G, it is almost uniformly distributed. It lies between 1 plus epsilon divided by cardinality G and 1 minus epsilon divided by cardinality G. By the way, this is my definition of almost uniform sampling. What is inside is like a sampler. And Erdős-Rényi is saying that if you take, the catch of course is that G1, G2, Gk have to be picked at random. So if you take G1, G2, Gk at random from G, then it gives you a very good sampler, nearly uniform sampler. Why? Because you take simply this product, then it is going to be equal to any given group element with probability nearly 1 by size of G. So it's nearly uniform. Okay. So Erdős-Rényi sequences are there. How do I use them? Okay. So in order to use them, there's another trick, and this is the Babai-Zemuridi reachability lemma, which was proved in a different context, which I don't have time to explain. What does the reachability lemma tell us? It's talking about how to build an Erdős-Rényi sequence for G from the generating set S. So I am only given the generating set for G. How do I build the Erdős-Rényi sequence? Okay, this is what it's saying. Saying that you can find a sequence of elements H1, H2, Ht using only so many group operations, so many group multiplications. T is again logarithmic in size of G, such that the group G is essentially the inverse of the cube generated by H1, H2, Ht multiplied by the cube generated by H1, H2, Ht. The inverse of the set means the inverse of every element in that set. So the meaning is clear. Let me tell you the proof, because this is the only proof that I'll tell you. So this is this very cute doubling argument. So let's start with a cube with just the identity name, call it C0. Now let's say the ith cube is the cube generated by H1, H2, Hi. Now my question is, how do I pick Hi plus 1? So at the I plus 1th step, I want to look for Hi plus 1, which is in Ci inverse Ci times the generating set S, such that Ci intersect Ci into Hi plus 1 is empty. I am looking for such an element. If there is no such element, I just stop the construction, because then that means every Hi plus 1, which is in Ci inverse Cis, is in the intersection of Ci and Ci Hi plus 1. That means every such Hi plus 1 is in Ci inverse Ci, because an element that is in Ci and Ci Hi plus 1 means Hi plus 1 can be written as something in Ci inverse into something in Ci. Okay? So if every Hi plus 1 in here is already in Ci inverse Ci, then I can keep post multiplying by S. So that means capital S to the power any finite number is also contained in Ci inverse Ci. That means I already reached the goal that I want, namely G is C inverse of H1, H2, Hi itself, and so I can stop with T equal to I. If this condition step I plus 1, I don't find an element Hi plus 1 like this, I can just stop. I found it. Otherwise, I will define Ci plus 1 with Hi plus 1 thrown in, and I repeat. Why is it logarithmic? Notice that's the cute idea of Babai and Zemuridi, that because Ci plus 1 contains Ci into Hi, and the size of Ci into Hi is, it doesn't have any intersection with Ci, but the cardinality of Ci into Hi is the same as the cardinality of Ci, because when you multiplicatively shift a set, the size of the set remains the same inside a group because of the group cancellation. Therefore, you are at least doubling the size. Ci plus 1 size is at least twice the size of Ci. So you have to stop within logarithmically many steps. I hope you enjoyed the proof. So the reachability lemma says that you can always find a cube generating sequence of size log cardinality of G like this. You don't need too many multiplications to reach all these elements H1 to HT. That's why it's called the reachability lemma. I can reach all these elements using only a small number of multiplications. Small for me is polynomial and log of size. Starting with the generating set, yes, I can reach them all easily. Okay. What is the use of this? How do I use it for my original goal of random sampling? Okay, the advantage is that if I take S prime to be H1, H2, HT and their inverses, then the Cayley graph's diameter becomes small. Because that's the whole idea of the cube generator. This is of small diameter, isn't it? Every element G is reachable in 2t steps. If this is my generating set, H1, H2, HT and their inverses. Every element of G is reachable in 2t steps. So diameter is bounded by 2t. So if I can find a cube generating sequence from my generating set and use that as my generators, well, at least I can guarantee the diameter is small. So when the Cayley graph has small diameter, then what? Well, okay, now I might lose you because I've got only 10 minutes left. I don't want to overshoot. So there is a nice theorem of Aldous, which is not difficult to prove. It's just 3-4 lines of argument using some elementary group theory, that if the Cayley graph has small diameter, then actually it is a 1/2 twice the diameter vertex expander. Okay, this is a new notion. In the beginning, I told you about edge expanders and spectral expanders. Vertex expanders are very much like edge expanders. So what is an epsilon vertex expander? It basically means, so Cayley graph G, S is an epsilon vertex expander. It means every subset A of G of size at most 50% of the group, the number of neighbors outside A is at least epsilon times cardinality. In the edge expansion, we were counting how many edges were going from inside to outside. Here we are counting the number of vertices that are lying outside. And being a good vertex expander actually means a good spectral expander also. It's a theorem of Alon, which shows that spectral and vertex expansion are tightly related to each other. In particular, look at the second part. If I have a good, if I have an epsilon vertex expander, then I can get lambda like 1 minus epsilon square d 4 plus 2 epsilon square. D is the degree of the graph. Nd epsilon is n is the number of vertices, d is the degree. Epsilon is the expansion. Now here epsilon square is going to be 1/4 delta square. So if you smoothen things out, you will get 1 minus 1 by order d into delta square, something like that. So you get a spectral gap of 1 minus 1 by degree into diameter square. And so if the diameter is not large, then you have decent spectral gap. Notice that if you have this kind of spectral gap, if you do a random walk on a graph like this, on a Cayley graph with this much spectral gap, you can get to uniform distribution fairly quickly. Remember the slide I showed you where you did an L step random walk and I bounded A to the L pi minus uniform, the L1 norm of that, by lambda by d to the L. Well, that argument will work even if the spectral gap is 1 minus 1 by diameter square. Because then I will have to take, the number of steps I have to take is 1 minus 1 by n to the power n is e to the minus 1. So I need to take order d into diameter square many steps and a little more, and to get to make this, the convergence rapid. Okay. So question is, how do I get to a Cayley graph of small diameter? The next few minutes, let me quickly tell you that. So you start with the Cayley graph with the generating set S. We are going to augment the generating set in stages. So that finally the generating set Sm has the property that the diameter is small. Small means polynomial and logarithmic, log of the size of G. And the number of stages itself is going to be logarithmic in G. So let's say S1 is R1. Si plus 1 is Si union Ri. So Ri plus 1 are the new elements that are going to come into my generating set. And the number of new elements will also be polynomial in log of size of G. What will be my cube? My cube is now, it's a slight generalization of the Erdős-Rényi cube, because it's not, I'm not going to be picking one element. It's defined using these subsets, because I don't know which one of them will be my HIs, because I'm going to randomly do some random sampling. So think of the cube Ci as R1, R2, Ri. For good measure, because we want to mimic the Erdős-Rényi argument, think of Ri's as including the identity also. Because you have H1 to the E1, H2 to the E2, H2, T to the ET, and the EIs are zeros or ones. 0 means identity, you don't pick any element, and 1 means you pick one of these elements, R1, because I don't know which one of these is going to be a good H1. But what we want to ensure is that Ri plus 1, earlier I wanted Hi plus 1 not in Ci inverse Cis. Here I only want to ensure Ri plus 1 is not contained in Ci inverse Ci. Okay. And that will ensure that my doubling argument holds, because, and that will ensure that M is bounded by logarithmic. But remember, Ci intersect Ci, Hi plus 1 is empty. For at least one of the elements, Hi plus 1 and Ri plus 1, I want that to happen, so that the cube will double every time. So this is what I want to do. And how will I do it? Here is the very, very simple idea. Do a random walk on the Cayley graph G with generating set Si, polynomially many steps. Polynomially many means poly of log cardinality G. Pick all the elements that are visited, call that Ri plus 1. Augment Si by Ri plus 1. That is your Si plus 1. Now we want Ri plus 1 to be not contained in Ci inverse Ci for the Erdős-Rényi argument to go through, the reachability lemma argument to go through. Why does that happen? Okay, so this is the part where we need some properties of the Cayley graph. So let's say gamma 2i is the subgraph of the Cayley graph induced by a ball of radius 2i around the identity. Because starting from identity, everything that is in Ci inverse Ci is contained in a ball of radius 2i. So let's look at that subgraph. So when we want Ri plus 1 to be not contained in Ci inverse Ci, it's good enough for us if the random walk that we did on the Cayley graph G, Si steps outside the subgraph gamma 2i at least once. If a random walk of length L, where L is polylog G, steps outside this ball of radius 2i at least once, then I will know that Ri plus 1 is not contained in Ci inverse Ci, and I'm done. What will guarantee that? That is the question. Okay, so this is the final technical thing which I can't tell you, which guarantees that. So Babai proves a local expansion property. What he says is that if you take a ball of radius t, and t is, and the ball of radius t itself is bounded by size of G by 2. So the diameter is much larger. So your ball of radius t is going to be pretty small. Then it is the probability that for any subset of this ball of radius t, you step outside that subset, or rather the vertex expansion nd minus d is at least d by 4t. So that means every subset, it's a local expansion, local vertex expansion. Every subset of gamma t induces a 1 by 4t expanding subgraph. That means from every subset, so basically gamma T induces a 1/4T expanding subgraph. Any subset of gamma T, you're going to step outside that subset with, you will see at least cardinality D/4T many neighbors outside the subset. And it turns out, by the connection between vertex expansion and spectral expansion, which holds for expanding subgraphs as well, that the largest eigenvalue of the subgraph induced by D or gamma T, if you want, is bounded by 1 minus epsilon is going to be 1/4T here. 1 minus epsilon square by size of S, 4 plus 2 epsilon square. So because epsilon expanding is really 1/4T expanding. So therefore, in other words, lambda is going to be this. And your T is small because you're looking at a small ball. T is going to be small. So locally, when if you do a random walk, the probability that on this, the probability that you step outside gamma T, if you do a walk of length, let's say this to the a walk of length order size of S into T square into L, the probability that you step outside gamma T will be at something like e power minus, or 1 minus e power minus L. So with very good probability, you will step outside. So that's what I've written here. If you do a walk of this length, the probability that you will stay confined in the ball is at most e power minus L. It's 1 minus e power minus L that's a mistake. So this is the probability that you don't step outside. So to ensure gamma 2i is at most size of g/2, it's enough that the diameter is more than 4 times I. So if the diameter was large, your local expansion guarantees that walking with the current generator set and augmenting will help you implement the reachability lemma in a blind, randomized manner. So here is the summary. And the algorithm is very simple, you can see. So your input is a generating set S. Do a random walk on the Cayley graph with that generating set for polynomially many steps. Collect all the elements that you visit. Include that in your generating set. Again, do a random walk for polynomially many steps. Collect that, include that in your generating set. Do that for something like order log G many stages. At the end of which, you will be guaranteed to have a graph of small diameter with high probability. Small meaning polynomial in the size of log of size of G. Now, on that graph, that old a power L argument that I showed you, I just do a reasonably long random walk to do random sampling because I get close to uniform distribution. I can pick G1, G2, Gk randomly. And by the Alon-Roykman theorem, as well as the Erdős-Renyi theorem, I will get both Erdős-Renyi sequences and spectral expanding generating set. And that finishes my talk. So here are the references. Sorry for overshooting. So these are the papers that I think the Erdős-Renyi paper is a beautiful paper worth reading. Probabilistic methods in group theory. It's available online. Babai's paper is available in his homepage, the full version. This is a conference version, which I have referred here. Aldous' book, where that vertex, the connection between the diameter of the Cayley graph and it being a good vertex expander is proved in a few lines in this book. And finally, I am interested in deterministic construction of expanding generating sets for, say, permutation groups or maybe even matrix groups, and to get as close to the Alon-Roykman bound as possible.
Any questions or comments, please?
Yeah, you have shown beautiful connections between them. And I think achieved that 2018 result is very good, using all the above.
Yes. Yeah, if you see all, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show you how these different threads nicely tie up with each other. So there is some beautiful combinatorics going on here. The work of Erdős-Renyi and the work of Babaj-Zemredi, very simple but very clever. And then there is some nice group theory also. But you can see that at this level, when you're just looking at the construction of logarithmic size generator sets for groups, it's purely a combinatorial exercise. There's hardly any group theory that comes.
No, I have one more question. Like the strongly regular graphs,
Yeah.
you already know they have 3 eigenvalues. And
Yeah, but strongly regular graphs probably have too many edges because they're diameter 2, no? So they will have to have many edges. So it will not. So it's in that sense. The goal of expander graphs is to have a small degree graph where the spectral expansion is bounded away by a constant from 1. So the strongly regular graphs, although they are expanders, but they are not in that sense interesting because the degree is large.
Because you'll be knowing 3 eigenvalues, and the one which is less, you prefer lambda to be less than -1
That's, yeah, it will give you a good spectral expander, that's correct. But its degree being large, it's not a very interesting construction. See, okay, here, do I have a couple of more minutes to share something interesting?
Yes, yes.
Okay, here is a very simple application of expander graphs, which so suppose you have a set, a finite set, a subset of which is marked. So you have a collection of marbles, let's say a collection of n marbles, and a delta fraction of the marbles is colored blue. How do I find a blue marble? What I'll do is, well, because I don't have any information, it's a completely disordered kind of set. I will put my hand into the bag and draw out a marble. With probability delta, I can draw out a blue marble. But with probability 1 minus delta, I'll fail to draw out a blue marble. So in order to increase the chances of finding a blue marble, I will repeat the experiment. What is that experiment repetition? If I repeat the experiment t times, the probability that I fail to find the marble in all the t steps is 1 minus t to delta to the t, isn't it? So the probability that I will find the marble is 1 minus delta to the t. And by choosing t sufficiently large, I can make this probability very large. So with very high probability, by repeated sampling, I can find the marble. But how many random bits have I used in the process? If I have n marbles in the bag, to draw out 1 marble, I need log n random bits. So if I perform the experiment t times, I will need t into log n random bits, because I'm performing t independent trials. Each trial requires log n random bits, so I'm using up t into log n random bits. So here is where the expander graphs do a great job. So suppose on the marbles, I had an expander graph. That means my graph has n vertices. The vertices are the marbles. The colored vertices are a subset of delta fraction of blue vertices, which I want to reach. And I start at an arbitrary vertex. Okay. Now, the question that I want to ask is, if I do a t-step random walk, what is the probability that I will never see a blue marble? In the case when I was drawing independently at random, that failure probability was 1 minus delta to the t. And here turns out, it's very interesting. It's 1 minus lambda into delta whole to the power t. So the delta shrinks by a factor of 1 minus lambda. So it's quite amazing, because how many random bits have I used in the whole process? For the initial vertex, let's say I pick it at random, that is log n random bits. Then at every step, I use only log of the degree of the expander graph, that is log d. D, that's a constant. Degree is a constant. So I need only order t extra random bits. So using order t extra random bits, I can make the failure probability go down to 1 minus lambda delta whole power t. Okay, and this is the reason I mentioned this was When lambda equals 0, that is the case of the complete graph. So when you have the complete graph, that's like independent sampling. That's the case when lambda is 0. The spectral gap is, the second largest eigenvalue is 0. Okay? So that is the reason why we want to keep the degree down. It allows you to save randomness while achieving the same kind of success probabilities that independent trials will give. So this area in computer science is called de-randomization and pseudo-randomness and so on. So it's a very exciting area, and construction of expander graphs plays a very important role as a pseudo-random object.
Thank you, sir, on behalf of the entire participants for your wonderful presentation. The next session will be on 23rd June by Joy Morris. She'll be talking about regular representations, Cayley graphs with minimal symmetry. So see you all then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.